Hello there, you beautiful soul. Welcome back to another Culture Talk segment with Rebecca Munoz, your host and founder of Cultured Society. I am here with another special guest this week to talk about life experiences and philosophies. And these conversations, if you have not had the opportunity to tune into them yet, this playlist is going to have a variety of conversations that are going to, well, the purpose of them is really to uplift you, to inspire you, and to really just encourage you to continue to seek and find your purpose and walk in that every single day. These conversations have been so inspiring to myself and the people that have been tuning in. So I just encourage you to open your mind and your heart to just tune in to what these guests have to talk about. And today I'm really excited about this one because I just so happened to reconnect with Zeke just a few weeks ago, and him and I have known each other since we were in middle school. So it's really great to be able to connect and collaborate with people that I've known for many years and also that are walking in their divine purpose. So just a little bit about Zeke before we go into our conversation. So Zeke Rodriguez was born and raised in Las Cruces, New Mexico, an Air Force veteran, father, entrepreneur, and natural healing advocate. Zeke is the founder and president of Continual Growth, LLC. Under his leadership, Continual Growth is now Southern New Mexico's leading medical cannabis and clinic I apologize. New Mexico's leading medical cannabis card clinic and CBD resource center. Beyond Continual Growth, Zeke's drive to uplift his community through wellness can be seen in his hosting of the last 3 annual festivals from 2017 to 2020. He believes yoga encourages a natural healing lifestyle as it focuses on mind, body, and spirit, all in one practice. Healing the community and bringing people together is Zeke's path and purpose. Zeke also enjoys running, promoting a natural healing lifestyle, and spending quality time with his daughter. And now he's also a candidate for running for Lieutenant Governor for 2022. So I'm really excited to be walking and working side by side with Zeke as he goes into this new endeavor. So thank you so much, Zeke, for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that awesome introduction. That was beautiful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, if you have not had an opportunity to tune into these conversations, the whole purpose behind these conversations is to activate you in a way that is going to inspire you to continue walking in your divine purpose, because more than ever before, in this day that we're living in, do we need more people to be activated to walk in their purpose? Because when you're walking in your divine purpose and your destiny, really, you are operating at a very high vibration. And with a high vibration, you're able to inspire and activate other people in not only your surrounding area, but oftentimes can go global. So I truly believe that every single person that is walking through these doors has so much value to offer this world. And so it's really important that we continue to have these conversations, to be open to just embrace other people's philosophies, life experiences, and where they are in their journey, because your journey is really not supposed to look like anybody else's. But when you are inspired by other people's stories, it gives you an opportunity to be able to continue to do what it is that you're supposed to be doing, because everybody's DNA code is very different. So we want to make sure that everybody is continuously inspired to continue to do what God has brought them here to do. So with this, I introduced the conversation about life philosophies and experiences. So Zeke, what is your life's philosophy?
Well, that's a pretty tough question for, I think, a lot of people. For me, I spent a lot of time thinking about that. You didn't get into my background with education, but my underground was in philosophy. So philosophy is something that I'm very dear to my heart, very dear to my intellect. I spent a lot of time and energy thinking about that. And for me, I like to make things simple as possible. I think the best thing that we could all do, it's called consequentialism or utilitarianism. Basically, you want to create the most good in the world as possible with all your actions. Okay, it's the consequences of your actions that really matter, and then it's the amount of good that you bring into the world with those actions. So that being said, I am driven to bring in about as much good into the world as possible. So my worldview is such that everything that I do, everything that I work towards, not only benefits me, but primarily benefits the greater good of the community and the greater good of everyone else around me. And there's actually a term that's coined that with that. It's called ethical egoist utilitarianism. So what basically in a nutshell, I wrote papers on this, basically in a nutshell, it's take care of yourself as best as you can, so that way you can put your best foot forward when you're helping the rest of the community. And there's a way that I think all of us, luckily when I was young, I was told to follow my passion, but I was in a position where my passion was such that I can make a living for my family, express myself with who I am with natural healing and all that, and then also share that same knowledge with the rest of the community. So for me, that was a win-win. It's something I'm passionate about, something I can drive income in with and have a business with, but at the same time, I'm simultaneously helping my community become better, healing, introducing a natural healing lifestyle. So yeah, that's my philosophy. Better yourself as much as you can, because no one else is going to take care of you the way you can take care of yourself. But that only goes so far. That should be pursued with the focus of helping as much people around you as possible, whatever that may be. And that's my own personal philosophy. I know there's a lot of people that don't agree with that necessarily, but that's just how I live my life. And that's what's got me to where I am today.
That's so good. That's so good. And there's so much truth in that, because there's a saying that says that you cannot pour out from an empty vessel. You have to fill your cup first before you can give to others that are around you. And really that is the domino effect.
Right.
When you are experiencing positivity and enlightenment within your own life, you're able to have the capacity to give that back to humanity as a whole. And that's the best gift that you could ever give anybody. Well, how would you say that philosophy has evolved over the years?
Well, I had that position in school. So like there's two different, like in philosophy, they always say, look, you can learn all the books you want, but experience is like the key to real philosophy. You're not going to really understand these principles and enjoy them unless you start experiencing them. So I had that thought coming out of school, kind of an ignorant, kind of a child way, but some really successful, very awesome, beautiful human beings, a whole other level of business, where they run hundreds of people. It's all about self-awareness at the top. When you're leading like masses of people and you have all this responsibility on your head, these mentors basically ingrained in me, like, look, the way to manage people and work with people is to better understand yourself. When you understand yourself and you understand what your needs are, what your desires are, and how the way you look at the world affects everyone else, then you can start to empathize with the people that you're leading or you're working with. And then you could really start to build that love and build that team dynamic. So I learned that in school. And then later in life, I got in touch with really big time business mentors, and they hardened that, what I learned in school, what I taught myself. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to go all in with the self-awareness. I'm going to go all in trying to understand my own psyche, my own desires, my own passions. And in that, yeah, that was some brilliant advice, was to better understand myself so I can better understand other people. Because in that self-awareness, you're also becoming more aware of those around you. And that's kind of that's where I'm at with it right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I like, it's very evident that everybody that you surround yourself with is a mirror of you. So whether people are activating you or deactivating you, it's really a choice as to who you choose to surround yourself with and what you get out of those relationships, whether
Right.
it's good or bad. And oftentimes the bad experiences with that self-awareness teach you that everybody's mirroring back to you certain levels that you haven't activated yet. So it's
Right.
always really great. It's a great opportunity for you to continue to surround yourself with people. And that goes into the next question, because you talked a lot already about influence and how people that have surrounded you have really truly shown you what the meaning of that philosophy has been for you. So
Yeah.
how has your circle of influence and upbringing impacted the way that you think and live today?
Well, I grew up, pretty not the most well-off rich family. I had amazing parents, but my parents are super giving. I grew up, we had a really small trailer, really small home, but we always packed it full of family, friends that had broken homes. So I saw my parents always sacrificing and extending themselves for the betterment of the family or the community. So that's kind of like who I am now. Still, I'm really just very sacrificial in that way, and very active. with making sure that everyone around me is okay and they're taken care of. Now that goes to the other, like, you're talking about you are who you hang out with. And that's like one of the big issues. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people, especially being in politics, are like, well, why are you with this person? Why are you with that person? It's always a judgment about one particular person that's in my circle. And it's like, hey, look, the reality is that this world is full of good people and bad people. Okay. And we have to get to a point where we have to work with people that we don't necessarily like or don't necessarily agree with. That is really what the world is how well we can get along with the people that we don't like, right? Can we be civil? Can we be humble? Can we listen to each other? Can we solve problems together? That's how this country was founded. And so I have a problem with people, always trying to say, well, you should only be with certain people. It's like, hey, man, if you're trying to run a business or you're trying to get into politics, you're going to run into crazy people, weird people, people with bad reps. But at the end of the day, until we can all look at what our commonalities are and that we're all connected in some way, that's the only way that we're going to transcend the situation that we're in.
100%, 100%. And we have to recognize too that we live in a duality filled world. We experience light and darkness every single day. And it really is up to you individually to filter through that as much as possible. And the more self-aware that you become, the more active or proactive you become about changing your circle of influence, because you cannot change the people around you technically, but you can change the people around you. And that is a choice every single day. So,
Sure.
you cannot change the family that you grew up with, right? But the influences that you have on a day-to-day basis, you definitely have
Right.
an opportunity to choose that. And that's so important. So important in the self-awareness game. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. And the influence, so, I didn't touch too much on the influences. Like, yeah, I surround myself with people, like yourself, people who are pursuing a healthier lifestyle, who are actually aware of all the toxic stuff that are in our daily environment, because I struggle with it too. But when I'm around people like you who are conscious of it, we work together, we put that energy in together to be healthier, better people. And that's who I can control in my direct circle. Now, outside of my direct circle, yeah, there's a lot of control that we don't have. So that's mostly what I was alluding to earlier. But yeah, as far as my inner circle, my tight circle is concerned, I'm very careful about who I bring into that circle, because they do influence you greatly. You really are who you hang out with. The crows don't fly with the eagles. It's that whole thing. We all know about those sayings. It's true.
Absolutely. You are the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And it's really important that you choose who you're going to spend, because at the end of the day, we can say that money is what makes the world go round, which it does. But if you really think about it, our time is our most valuable asset, and we get to choose how we utilize our time on a second to second basis. And it's so important for us to take responsibility for that. Do you believe that your line of work infects our society with positivity?
I really hope and work towards it doing so. Yes. That's why my slogan is continual growth. Good health is a lifestyle. Good health is a lifestyle. I want people to understand that it's not any miracle drug. There's no such thing as like one thing that's going to make you healthy. Like, that's not what health is. Health isn't you take a pill and all of a sudden you're healthy. Real health, real wellness is a day-to-day struggle. It's a lifestyle, and you build on it. Just like you're building muscles, you build on your overall well-being. It's the lifestyle, and that's the primary thing I try to drill into people's heads. Like, you can take all the CBD you want, you can smoke all the weed you want, you can buy all the supplements you want, but until you really train your mind and train your body to live in the way that's most conducive for growth, you're just spinning your wheels. And most likely, if you're that addicted to that worldview of like something's always going to save me instantly, then you're going to be suffering in other ways that you really don't need to be suffering, because then you're putting so much expectation out there for that one miracle drug or that one easy answer. And that just doesn't, it's not how the world works. It's not how life works. Life's all about incremental steps. That's what I've learned. We're so conditioned to be instant coffee with our cell phones and, the way TV is and stuff. But if you really look at life and you really look at the big things that happen, it's always incremental steps. Now, people only see the end result. So they're like, oh, well, that girl made it look easy. But if you really dig deep into what it took that person to get to that level, it would probably make people cry. It would probably make people run away, because it's like, I don't ever want to go through that stuff. So that's that's what's really important to me, is to make sure that people take in that it's a lifestyle and that you don't need any drugs for that. I don't need to make any money from you on that. I'm just hoping that I help you make that choice where you want to get up early, you want to work hard, you want to live your life's passion, whatever that may be.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the incremental steps, because I like to think of life as a marathon and not a sprint. I'm a marathon runner, and I can attest to how much discipline and intention it takes every single day to live a disciplined lifestyle. Holistic living is a disciplined lifestyle.
Very good.
It takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes so much time and energy in order for you to learn this stuff, because it's not something that we're taught. We're not taught how to take care of ourselves in school. Oftentimes, when you go down that path of holistic healing, it's because you've done everything the wrong way, and you probably hit rock bottom at some point and you had nowhere else to go but to just take the long route, right?
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. That's what happened to me. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, I know you already talked about a little the importance of growth, but what inspired the name Continual Growth? How did that come about for you?
That's cool. I was studying this term called Kaizen in college, and it's a quality management philosophy. And it basically came about post World War II. After we won the war, we had the post-war industrial revolution, and so America was really good at pumping out like massive like tanks, because we were putting out massive tanks and refrigerators and all that, but they were really low quality. So we were good at producing a bunch, but the quality was really bad. So we had some American philosophers. They were business philosophers, essentially. Edward Deming, I believe his name was. He wanted to share this knowledge with GM, with Ford, about how to run things more efficiently, but they didn't want to accept it. So he actually had to go to Japan, and he spread that philosophy in Japan. And it's the idea of Kaizen, which means change for the good of all and continual growth, Kai and Zen. Okay. And so that's why Japanese made products are so amazing, because Edward Deming went there back in the 50s and implemented this way of a good change and for the good of all. And so basically everyone's involved in the quality process. Everyone, from the lowest level person on the floor to the top, everyone's involved on calling out small issues and making sure that the quality of that product is at its highest degree. So I really love that philosophy, and you can apply that philosophy to anything aside from business. But see, Kaizen was a little bit, it's kind of a weird term because it's not English. So the next best thing was continual growth, because Kaizen means continual growth and change for the good of all. So I stuck with continual growth because, yeah, continual growth, that's the way I think your health should be approached. There's a never ending end point. You never get to a point where like, all right, I'm healed, I'm amazing, this is perfect. Like it's every day, all the time, how you die. It's the same thing with our morality. We always have to continually grow with our morality. We always have to strive to be a better person, to do the right thing. That never changes. Same thing with your health. You always have to eat good. You always have to exercise. You always have to sleep well. That never ends until you get in the ground. So that's why I really love the name Continual Growth.
I love that. I love the name, and I'm so with you on that, because I mean, we have to embrace the fact that as a humanity, we're a never-ending evolution. We will never arrive. I mean, we have billions of cells and atoms and DNA in our body, and it's constantly being activated or deactivated with our thought process. We have billions of cells in our brains. So how much of a capacity do we have to actually learn? And majority of people in our society, in this world as a collective, maybe 5% are active, or no, it's the 1% that's activating the entire capacity that we have, right? To be limitless individuals, or but majority of people are only activating 5% of their brain. So how much more of a potential do we have?
I feel like it's endless. If we really were given the tools that we need to better develop ourselves, if we were trained since we were very young, how to eat well, how to live well, how to exercise, to read about, psychological truths that help us become better people with self-awareness. I think the human brain is like our connection to the higher source, our connection to God, and it's just the human mind. That what I learned is the human mind, the human spirit, and spirituality altogether is like the most powerful thing that we've ever had on this earth. And so once that power is unleashed, and once you start tapping into it, you know what I'm talking about. You've been there. You know what that feels like when you're really just unifying mind, body, and spirit. It's another level of consciousness that I don't even think IQ test can quantify. I don't think that you can quantify it in a percentage of brain or functionality. It's just you are one with the source, and you just have that level of communication with the higher power where you know you're in the right position. You get chills in your body. You get excited about what you're doing every day. And I know that's hard to get for a lot of people, but I'm honored to be preaching that message and to be hanging out with people like you who pursue those things.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I feel the exact same way. It's such an honor, especially as you continue on this continual growth path. You continue to align yourself with that divine purpose, which is what I'm talking about. And, it's really, it's sad. It's a sad thing to say that, a big percentage of our society are walking, not necessarily blindsided, really, asleep, doing jobs that they hate every single day for 9-10 hours a day, 50-60 hours a week. We were talking about this earlier in our meeting where, you do the same mundane routine every single day and you never really expand yourself. And it's so important individually that every single day we make the conscious effort to be expanded, because it's the only way that we're going to grow. When we're uncomfortable is really when we activate the most potential in us to be able to develop that self-awareness and to be able to walk and step into that power that we have, that Zeke was talking about.
Yep.
Right. So do you believe that the work that you do every day is aligned with your higher purpose?
Yeah. I mean, I've always had dreams of influencing the world in a positive way, of sharing my message with people, and just given that, the pharmaceutical, because the medical industry is really what got me into this. They told me when I first got out of the military, I was going to need 4 or 5 surgeries. I'll never run again. And at that time, I was one of those people who worked every day and I just went with the system, and I listened to the doctors, and I was very depressed. It was only when I got out of these institutions, this really Western way of thinking, that I started to learn to challenge myself and to discover health and wellness on my own terms. Because what they were telling me, I found through my experience, that they were not that they were lying, but it wasn't true that I needed 4 or 5 surgeries. I healed myself naturally. So that's what really made me start looking critically at the health system, at the government, at just the way this whole thing comes together. And I think a lot of what we manifest in this world is with our worldview and with our perspective. And until you start critically analyzing everything that everything's been feeding you, you're gonna be limited in what your capabilities are, because you're only going to be as powerful as you let yourself be. So most of the restrictions I learned that were on me were the restrictions I put on myself. Like, I'm not capable of doing that. At the time when I was younger, like, I can't do that. I'm going to settle for this because that's what society is trying to put me into, this category. And so it was the most empowering thing for me to do, was to just start criticizing and critically analyzing everything, just destroy everything. And then in that destruction, you'll find seeds of truth, and you'll start building on your worldview. So that way you have your own conclusion on how the world works. And then you have your own conclusion how you want to approach your own health. Because for me, I found out that what they were telling me wasn't always true.
Yes, yes. And it's so important to have the critical thinking skills. And you don't have to go to a traditional college or traditional schooling to learn those skills. In fact, those skills are learned exponentially when you actually go out and experience life for yourself and you really start to question. I'm right there with you. I definitely questioned Western medicine. I like to say it was a little bit later than it probably should have, but I believe that everything happens in divine order. And it happened when I needed to experience that shift. And just like you, I definitely questioned everything. I learned non-traditional ways of healing, which should be the traditional ways of healing, because it's in our history. It's in our ancestral bloodline, right? To be able to heal holistically. And so it's so important that we continue to spread that message, because not enough people know that. And it's so important to continue to speak about it, especially if you've been able to transform your life the way that we have do so. And so what inspired you to run for lieutenant governor?
Well, I've always been very interested in politics, and even since I was a kid, I was very pushed to run for politics. Even like what was it called in middle school? You're in like the student council. I remember being laughed at when I wanted to run for city council and when I was in sixth grade. They were like, "Oh, this guy, no way." But for some reason, I was always compelled to speak my truth and represent people. I don't know what it is. It runs in my family, I guess, too. But recently, why I decided for lieutenant governor is because I am very educated on how this world works. And I'm not saying I know everything. Of course, I don't. The more I learn, the less I know, really, kind of a thing. But I've seen and studied and predicted what's going on to our state, to our country, and in the world. And I see no one else saying or sticking up or mentioning these issues that I know are true and that are very, very important for our people. So in that space of not seeing anyone step up to the plate and say the things and do the things that need to be done to save our state and save our people, I decided to step up, and I'm going to say it because I've always been the rebel. I've always been the one that, the bad boy in certain senses, where I'm just going to stick up for what I know is true, and I'm not going to settle. This is who I am, and this is what I believe in, and this is no different running for lieutenant governor. These are the issues that I believe in. This is what I know, and I have a lot of support. A lot of people see the things the way that I do, and I think we all feel the same way that I felt. That there's no one else up there trying to do or say the things that need to be said or done. And I'm honored to be that person to step up to the plate and represent the people, because I don't think that many other politicians, if ever, have done it here in New Mexico.
Especially not at your age.
Definitely not at my age. But I've been through a lot, for my age. I've had a lot of responsibility thrown onto me at a very young age. I've delivered in a lot of respects, in business, in education, and when I was working for the union as a shop steward. I can go on and on about my accomplishments, but I think what I want people to see is, see my accomplishments, see that I'm a legit dude, but also trust that what I'm saying is what I actually mean, and that I'm not here for some other ulterior motive. I am literally here to follow the Constitution and to protect those unalienable rights that are given to us in the Declaration of Independence. And see, that right there, I haven't heard a politician say anything like that, but that's just so basic. It's so basic. Like, we should all be saying that, but you don't hear it from anybody.
It's so true. And have you, because there definitely is a negative connotation oftentimes when it comes to the term cannabis, and you being now running for a politician and then being in the cannabis industry, how are you able to leverage or even just help change or shift people's perceptions on that?
Well, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to have the platform to finally communicate to the state, to the world, to the country, the real love that's in cannabis, the truth that comes along with hemp and natural healing, because we haven't had that platform. They've stifled all of that message through these years. And the guys who are in it, the people who are the girls, the beautiful people that are in the cannabis industry, in the hemp industry, we know, we see it, we live it. This is a beautiful plant. It's here for humanity. Our bodies were made with the endocannabinoid system. We are made to communicate with the cannabis plant. Okay, that is the most natural form of healing that we can give ourselves, and we've been cut off from it. Okay, and so I am honored to use this platform to fight that stigma and say, look, this is the way we need to go. This is free energy with hemp. The fats and lipids in hemp you can make biodiesel with it. Okay, you got hempcrete, all right, hemp wool that you can make the best, most sturdy homes ever in the history of the world. They've done studies. They get stronger over time. They actually mold with the earth shifting, and it gets tighter and gets stiffer. So there's the two things right there: free energy, amazing homes. And then we're not even getting into the natural healing component of it, where you don't even have to get high. That's what people don't understand. Yeah, THC in dispensaries, they get high, and there's some negative associations with that. And I see that, and I don't agree with all that. But if you look into the hemp world and the other cannabinoids that don't get you high, that are non-psychoactive, and you see the power of them, like CBD, power to cure intractable seizures that Western medicine cannot fix, but this natural plant can. This plant that helps defeat cancer and keeps cancer at bay. Man, this is something that humanity not only needs to wake up to, but they need to start fighting for, because this is the answer. This is the way that our species needs to go, in my opinion.
That's really good. And now that I'm learning a lot more, because, coming from a state like New Mexico, especially living in Las Cruces and growing up in Las Cruces and being at a very young age, we didn't have the education one. And oftentimes we used marijuana for purposes of just rebelling, right? But
Right.
as I got older and started to understand the medicinal properties, and even the medicinal properties that come along with the foods that we eat, right? So it really changed my perception and even the way that I use it. Because there's a lot of people that are using it in not a very, it's not very beneficial for their overall well-being. And taking the classes that I've taken with you so far, I've learned so much, and it's definitely educated me in a way to continue to use it properly.
Right.
Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about that between the CBD and the THC?
Yeah, and so that's the key thing there. And this is, if you can understand this issue, this topic, this point, then you can really start to understand how the world works, okay, and how our country works, how politics work. So back in the 1940s, CBD was actually discovered before THC. And so right away, they started testing it on animals, testing it on mice, and testing it on people. We're going to give animals just CBD and write down their behaviors, see how they reacted. We're going to give people just CBD, write down their behaviors, write down how they reacted. Then we're going to give them just THC when they finally discovered THC a couple of years after, or shortly thereafter. And then same thing, we're going to give them just that, test them out. So they found out right away back in the 40s that when you give individuals and test animals just THC, it messes with their neurocognitive functionality. Okay, short-term memory loss, which if you think about it on a societal scale, if you got everybody running around with short-term memory loss, that is going to be like basically a collective conscious psychosis, so that's not good. And then we're not getting into the other mood disorders that you can get into. Okay, psychosis is an actual side effect that you can get into when you take too much THC. So then let's fast forward a little bit. They started to give them together, THC and CBD together, and they noticed right away that the negative cognitive functioning side effects from THC were immediately mitigated once you started giving the test subjects more CBD than THC. So we've known for a very long time that THC jacks with your mental cognition, and not in a good way. And especially if you keep just doing it and doing it, you get what's called THC toxic. And that leads to the mood disorders I was talking about earlier. They've known that, okay? So that's what I argue, that they've weaponized it in a certain way. And they've also known in the same space that once you start giving patients a little more CBD than THC, you get all of the health benefits that come with cannabis, the anti-inflammatory properties. You can start talking about curing intractable seizures. You can start talking about attacking certain forms of cancer. And it's in the studies. I'm not making this stuff up. You can't just go around saying things cure cancer, because that's there's laws about that. But if you look at the cannabis studies that have been around for decades, you do have positive correlations with dealing with cancer with cannabis. Okay, so the main thing that I think people don't understand is that this has been hidden from us, I think purposefully, because look how much pharmaceutical industry products that these products compete with. You're talking about ibuprofen, you're talking about Tylenol, you're talking about Epidiolex, or Epidiolex is a CBD form for procedures, but you're talking about other anti-seizure medication that CBD would be competing with. I mean, we can go on and on and on about how many drugs cannabis, hemp replace. Okay, so look at that. Look at how they disconnect the human species from what, it's because they don't make any money off. I think most people who listen to your show and who are going to be following me, listening to me, they understand, like, there's no money in the cure. Okay, there's only money in the sickness. So we have to understand that they're not looking out for our best interest. It's political. They're doing what's in the best interest of their donors, or their own interest may be, because our interest is natural healing lifestyle, natural healing medicine, and that's in the hemp and the cannabis world. But they've put a lot of money into stigmatizing it, so we don't get close to it, so we don't look at it in the perspective that it's going to be beneficial to humanity. Okay, so that's the thing, is people need to understand that if they're willing to hide that from us to our own detriment and their benefit, what else have they been lying to us about? What else should we have access to have this better society for us as a species? That's just one thing. Okay, so that's why I say, if you understand that, the fact that they've been hiding this from us and that they don't have public service in that, because the studies are so clear, people. I would love to just, if you reach out to me through Rebecca, and I'll show you the studies. There's study after study from the 40s that show you give them just THC, it's going to jack with their mind. As soon as you put CBD in there, not only does it stop jacking with their mind, but they get more health benefits. So it's even better when you use them together. Why is there not state officials? Why is there not national officials promulgating this out to the world? Well, because the pharmaceutical industries, I'm sure, have something to do with that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, the three largest industries in the world are the pharmaceutical, the food, and the insurance industry. They're three conglomerates that work together to keep people sick and uninformed. So if you're not taking initiative to educate yourself, whether it's through classes like what Zeke offers, because he offers classes on a weekly basis through Facebook and well, all social media platforms. And I would like to say that there are a lot of people doing this type of education, but there's really not enough people doing this type of education. So if you really partner with great nutrition and great supplements like CBD, you know, even incorporating a little bit of THC, but for the most part, it really is lifestyle changes that you can make on a consistent basis to be able to heal your body. Actually, our body is such a miraculous vessel, and it's literally a well-oiled machine. It does what it needs when you give it what it needs.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with all that. And I'm not throwing Western medicine under the bus. I mean, obviously, there's amazing medicines that the pharmaceutical industry has created. I mean, you know, we can go into, you know, certain antiviral medications, you know, that are just like amazing. And so I do believe in certain aspects of Western medicine, but what I don't agree with is that there are natural healing medicines out there that we just have never been taught about and never have any access to. Um, and so, you know, real quick, I'll mention Texas because we're talking about medical cannabis. So Texas has a medical cannabis program, and people always give it a hard time because they don't sell high THC products. All they do is sell low THC products with high CBD content. And people are like, "Oh, that's weak. That sucks." Well, the reality is, people, is that they're going off of the science. Scientifically, you do not need more than 5 milligrams of THC per 120 milligrams of CBD. You just don't. It's really, the ratio is 1 milligram of THC to 30 milligrams of CBD. Once you start using the medicine in that way, holy cow, you're talking about anti-inflammatory benefits, better sleep, better dealing with anxiety, better dealing with pain, rapid healing because it's so anti-inflammatory. The key reason why anti-inflammation is so important is because it lets your body let the white blood cells get into and attack and deal with the disease and ailment that you're dealing with. So when you got less inflammation, that gives the white blood cells more time to do their work. So that's why anti-inflammatory drugs, anti-inflammatory lifestyle is so good for your body, because it lets your body's white blood cells do their job better. So why are we not taught this basic stuff? Why are we not given access to this stuff? I think we know the answer to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can definitely attest to what Zeke is saying because I didn't always live a holistic lifestyle. It wasn't until about 28, 29 that I really started to make these shifts. So I've been on a holistic journey for about 10 years now, and it's been a game changer. And it wasn't something that I was taught. It was something that I was intuitively inspired to just learn about. As I was reading the books and immersing myself in this culture, I was taking action, personal action, and that's really where the change happened. But it really is an individual responsibility for us to be able to get these resources, learn as much as possible, and apply what it is that you're learning in order for your body to do what it's supposed to naturally do.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
how do you stay relevant, unique, and true to who you are as a person?
Well, I follow what makes me happy. You know, I follow, like, I love working out. I love reading. I love being engaged with politics. I love learning about cannabis. So I think what keeps me unique and keeps me inspired is just to keep chasing my heart, chasing the things that excite me the most, and doing what's best for the community around me. Those are the main things.
And
Always developing. I never try to stop learning. I always try to stay humble.
that's good. That's good. And it's a continuous thing, just like we talked about earlier. Continual growth is a daily practice. And I want to talk a little bit more about what you do to stay, how you incorporate daily lifestyle practices that, yeah, basically keep you grounded every day.
So I'm like everyone else. I struggle with discipline and stuff too, but only insofar as that I'm willing to sacrifice my own health. And this is the problem. And I think a lot of people do it. I'm willing to sacrifice my own health for the greater good. So if there's meetings that come up, there's things that calling for me on politics, the first thing I'll say is, or I won't run today, or I won't go to the gym today. So that's stuff that I struggle with, just like a lot of people do. But at the end of the day, I know that I have to get back to that, and that I have to put my best foot forward before I can start help. I got to help myself before I can put my best foot forward. So just grounding myself in that philosophy I talked to you about earlier in the podcast, and constantly reminding myself of that is how I am able to stay focused on it.
And how would you say that, what changes could you make that would help you be very consistent and that could help other people be consistent in that practice?
Well, I think right now, and I'm always developing, I'm always learning new things about myself. One of the key things that I learned, because I did do counseling, and I've been a big believer in counseling. One thing I learned was positive coping mechanisms. Okay. And so that's where I need to get better at, because right now I'm running for politics and doing my business stuff. This is not that it's too much for me, but I'm having to reshift my lifestyle to deal with the different pressures and being pulled in different ways. So now I have to strengthen my mind and grow my mind and develop coping mechanisms to deal with these new types of stressors that I have, which I know I have the tools to do because I've dealt with worse in my life. So, but it takes a little bit of time. And that's the thing I hope people understand from this is like, it's not been easy. It's a very hard struggle to expand your mind, to make your pain tolerance essentially go up. You're having to condition your mind and your soul to be like, okay, now you got to deal with this level of pain now. How am I going to do that? Well, I like to run up mountains half naked. I like to lift heavy weights. I like to do hardcore yoga. Okay, so pushing myself through very trying, taxing, basically purposefully putting myself through suffering situations in physical challenges helps me better deal with the mental stressors that I endure in business and in politics. And that's one thing that a lot of the people that inspire me always allude to, like, you got to work out, you got to exercise, because only in that struggle and that suffering have I been able to find clarity through the chaos. And I can't wait to, I've already got a game plan to deal with, incorporating that natural healing lifestyle with now that I have politics in my life. So I'm excited to put that all together, because I can see, and visualization is key for me too, is I can see and visualize myself doing the work to train for a marathon, doing the work to get my company to the next level, and also doing the work to better connect with the people to represent them when I run for lieutenant governor.
That's so good. That's perfect. And remember that it's just 1% shifts every single day that will allow you to become better over the course of an entire year. So 1% shifts every single day is equivalent to 365% growth over the course of a year. And 1% really is nothing, but if you can do that one thing every single day consistently, how much better are you going to be at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's huge. And then talking about changing the mind stuff, now we're talking about neuroplasticity and what have you. And I learned a lot about that studying Buddhism. I've got really grounded into Buddhism. I studied it pretty intricately. I've studied all religions, but Buddhism, I really think aligns. I mean, Christianity does too in a different way, and we can get there. We'll go there. But for now, with Buddhism, you approach it that life is suffering, right? It's 90% suffering if you're lucky. Okay. And so once I was able, because I went through a lot of loss, I lost a lot of families, a lot of them passed away. I lost the business that I was involved with before. I lost everything. So I was dealing with a great deal of loss. And in Buddhism, it's like, look, that's normal. Okay. Everyone has suffering. Everyone goes through betrayal. Everyone goes through great loss. All right. So don't feel sorry for yourself. Understand the loss, acknowledge the loss, and accept it and move on. Because if you keep holding on to these traumas, it's going to bog you down. It's going to hinder who you are as a person. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is they get into this comfort zone where they think life is always 100% awesome. And it's always just this beautiful, like Candyland thing. It's like, no, it's not. Okay. And the Christian philosophy gets behind it when you start seeing Jesus carrying the cross and he's enduring all that suffering up the mountain. People are spitting on him and he's bleeding and he's dying. Well, that's what I believe that they're telling us in the Bible is what it's like to walk with Jesus and to follow that philosophy of suffering, is that people are going to be spitting at you. It's going to hurt. It's going to be a lot of suffering, but that's what's best for our human soul. That's what's best for a society, to learn how to endure that suffering, but still stick to our morals and stick to what we believe in. And at the end, we shall see light, right? And it's like that. And so in Buddhism, it's nirvana. And in Christianity, it's getting into the gates of heaven. Either way, both philosophies have the same core component, that life is suffering, and then walking the good path is the hard path.
Absolutely. And it really is that perception shift that really it changes the game, because when you recognize, we were talking about this earlier in the week when we were meeting with Felicia about the importance of going through pressure. And I referenced the diamond, right? The diamond it's not, it wasn't always a diamond, it was a piece of coal. And the more rigorous process that it goes through, the more heat, the more polishing, the longer the process of pain that this piece of coal goes through, the more valuable the diamond becomes. And that's the same thing that I always love to reference when I am going through my personal struggles, because I know firsthand and personally that I have a very big purpose. And I know that you do too, Zeke. So, the more hardship that we go to or go through, that's the hardship that is molding us, right? It is preparing us for that greater purpose that is going to develop us into a bigger responsibility, because it's a big responsibility to be a leader.
It is.
It's a big responsibility to have this knowledge and to be able to share it with the world. You get a lot of ridicule, but at the same time, you get so much more love, when you really think about what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about leading by example. I get a lot of criticism from what I'm doing now in politics and in business, but I lead by example. I believe in everything that I tell people about. I've been through a lot. Uh, and so I think as a leader, you really have to be willing to serve. You can't lead unless you're a good follower. So I think that's a big one, but also leading by example. There's a lot of that missing these days. People are willing to say certain things, they're not willing to do certain things. And I'm a doer. I'm definitely a doer.
That's good. That's good. And so, what words of wisdom would you give to those seeking a deeper understanding of themselves?
Um, just do the work. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and obviously do it healthily. Don't go into a freaking meat cleaver or jump into like a mulch machine or anything. But get used to the idea of being uncomfortable. And only when I realized how powerful that was I really able to start dealing with the hardcore issues that kept coming in my life. Because before I realized that life was suffering and that this life comes with a lot of pain, I would get really down on myself and feel sorry for myself. But I don't think things have to be that way. I think if people understood that there's so much to be grateful for, there's so much gratitude to be had in your life and your spirit, the last thing you want to do is feel sorry for yourself. The one thing you want to do is be grateful for what you do have. Always try to shroud yourself in gratitude, and then also get comfortable being uncomfortable. And those are the two things that have helped me the most. I always try to stay in gratitude. Like, things aren't perfect. Like, people are really easy, like someone in my position, people like your position, like, oh well, they got everything given to them, that's why they're at. No, I've been through a lot of really horrible stuff. And I don't mean that in like a horror movie way, but it's like, man, there's instances where it was gut wrenching, where I just wanted to quit and I just wanted to bury my head in the sand. But I've had mentors come at me when I needed them the most and say, hey, you just keep fighting, man. Do not give up. Do not give up. And that goes back to what I'm saying. Get used to being uncomfortable, because if you want to achieve something big, you want to express your spirit, that's not going to be easy. The world will not let you do that just willy-nilly. You're going to have to go through a lot to express yourself in whatever way that is you want to be. So being grateful with what you have, the fact that you even have the opportunity to express yourself in that way, should be a source of gratitude, because most people don't even have that. You look at China, these slave camps, you look at Africa, they don't even have they have their whole consciousness on this planet will never ever entail them expressing themselves in the way that they want, ever. They just have to accept that. So the fact that you could even have this thought and watch this show and have the opportunity to express yourself the way that you want to is huge. Then you can get into, okay, now I know that the path ahead of me to express myself is going to be very enduring. Now go get used to being uncomfortable, whether it's through working out, through reading a lot, through writing a lot. If you suck at something, try to get good at it. I used to suck at math. I used to suck at reading. I've had to have a lot of help. I had learning disabilities, but I pushed myself to get through it. Same thing in business. I didn't have family to teach me about business. A lot of the successful business guys that I know today, their dads were in the business, their dads were doctors, their moms were in the business, and they had these beautiful life lessons that they were taught from a young age. I had to learn this stuff on the fly. Yeah, I've had some mentors here and there, but that's not to go without a lot of pain, a lot of loss that I had to deal with to get to where I am. So don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of failing. I failed so much. It's unbelievable. People who are like, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to suffer, and just be grateful, everybody. If we could all learn to sit in gratitude, I think that would help a lot. I think people have become very ungrateful, and I think you have a lot more in your life than you know.
Absolutely, 100%. And I like to say that gratitude is a magnet for miracles. And the more grateful you are, the more you are able to experience things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And the more that you expand yourself in the awareness, because we are, just like Zeke said, we have such a privilege just to be alive today, one. But if you are here in the United States, watching from the United States, we have so many freedoms. It may not seem like it now because of all of the things that are happening in our world. But if you travel to other countries, like what Zeke's talking about, economically, the privileges that we have, the abilities to speak our truth when we want to. I mean, we just have so much to be grateful for, and there's no limit. There's really no limit to what you can achieve here, regardless of where you come from.
Right. Yeah, and that's not to say that I'm a self-made person. I'm not. I got to where I am because I've had amazingly super smart people around me that's helped me. My family, my friends, my coworkers. Everything I have is an expression of who I've had in my life that has helped me, and I'll always be humble in that way. So I just want to put that out there that I'll never claim to be a self-made person. That's anybody that talks like that is, I think, is silly, because it takes a team to do anything big in this world, from what I learned.
It really does. And you had mentioned that you weren't the best reader growing up. Are there any books now that you would recommend to somebody that is trying to, whether it's develop a deeper understanding of themselves, or a book that has impacted you in a significant way?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a pretty easy question for me. And I usually buy this book for close friends of mine who graduate college or graduate from any kind of institution. It's 48 Laws of Power by Dr. Green. And he also wrote a book called Mastery. And in the 48 Laws of Power, he does a beautiful, it's a New York Times bestseller. He does a beautiful job articulating historical power moves that were made. And he gives you a first person perspective of, like, say, a king or a queen navigating through the power hierarchy of their given situation. And it's so beautiful how it pertains to our situation today, because this all is a power game. Okay. And now I don't mean power in a sense that we're going to like take over the world, but it's like power in for yourself. So you know how to navigate around the people who are assholes, or the people who don't have your best interests at heart, or to navigate in this world so that way you can be your best self. Okay, so that book has changed my life tremendously. And I also read his book Mastery, where it talks about, to master any subject, you got to do 10,000 hours of that particular subject or that particular skill, 10,000 hours. And he goes into how all that is the most powerful thing you can do. If you get really good at something, that's the most powerful thing you can do on earth, because nobody can really think about it. Think about Michael Jordan. Think about any star athlete. They don't mess with them, okay? Because they're badass at what they do. So these two books are really there to help you find your true self. Like, for instance, in the book of Mastery, it's like, you don't know what you want to do, which is, I didn't know what I want to do for a while either. You don't know what you want to do. You don't know what you're passionate about. Well, what don't you like to do? What do you hate to do? And list them out. And that's going to point you in the direction of what you do like to do. Okay. So those are the kinds of lessons that I took from those two books. And I read a lot, I've read a lot, but those two books right there are massively, massively consciousness shifting. And I would recommend them for everybody. I do recommend them for everybody.
Absolutely. This is so good. I actually read the 40 Laws of Power, and it's such a great book. And there's so much great literature. If you notice through this playlist, that's one of the questions that I do ask a lot of people who are big readers. And majority of the people coming through this platform anyway are really educated through experience, first and foremost, but also through traditional education as well, and through their careers. All of these people are definitely leading a path of great intention, mastery, and discipline. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have had this conversation with you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with our community. Because at the end of the day, we just need more people sharing their stories and their experiences to be able to continue and inspire other people to do the same. You know, it's like that Me Too movement, right? There's so many people that are going through, especially, and I'm so glad that you talked about the importance of knowing that don't look at just the end result, especially when you see somebody who you deem successful, right? Because you have no idea the amount of sacrifices that they had to endure in order for them to become the end result. And even then, we never really arrive and we're continuously growing. So it's really important that we continue to have these conversations, to continue to walk in your divine purpose so that we can raise the vibration of this planet, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to experience sustainable change. And that is the end goal.
I agree.
So do you have any finishing statements that you'd like to add, Zeke?
Well, just on the whole continued growth thing, you know, it's about the path, not the finish, right? The path is what really matters, is what I learned even recently. I've been working towards another goal in my life that probably will never come to fruition, but because of the path that I went through to get to where I am now poised to go through and do bigger things that I had even planned for. And so if there's anything I can leave everyone on, it's life's about the path. It's not about the finish. It's about continual growth.
It's about the journey. That is right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. If you have not had an opportunity to go through this playlist, under each video, I list in the description where you can connect with each individual panel of guests. If they are on social media platforms, you can connect with them, reach out to them. Every single person that I have interviewed so far is so open to connection, authentic connection. So take the time to learn more about these people, because again, they are creating waves on this planet, and we are so grateful that they are a part of this culture and this community. So thank you so much, and until next time, we'll see you soon. Peace and blessings.
Rebecca.
Thank you.